What's up, guys? Welcome to Horror Movie Rewind. I'm Dustin. If you've never done so before, really appreciate if you bitch slap that subscribe button for me.
Hope you like what you see.
I've seen Scream 7 5 times now. And from the very first night, the Thursday fan screening, since I walked out of the theater, all I've heard is people bitching about it. Not seeing the forest for the trees, at least in my opinion. And that includes a lot of people on YouTube with exponentially more of an audience and subscribers than I have. I just genuinely am confused and bewildered by how people just don't fucking get it. There's such a short-sightedness in the reviews that I've read and opinions that people have about it. And yet the movie just absolutely open hand smacks you in the face with all of this, if you're even a casual fan, evidence of what's to come and what was actually going on. As the title states, the point of this video is to tell you who I think is pulling the strings, and I think it's quite obvious, and who, honestly, I think has been doing so possibly since the very first film. I'm not limiting that to one person, however. We'll get to that later, because first, I want to talk about why I think it's so asinine for people to be all up in arms about who was revealed to be Ghostface in this film. I was genuinely shocked by the amount of people the first night I saw this that I incorrectly assumed, by the way, knew what the hell was going on. And what I mean is, this was Thursday at 6 p.m. It seemed like an event. It wasn't a Friday, a teenage date night scenario. Yet, you had a large portion of the audience that gasped, were genuinely just shocked at the first image of Stu Macher. At the same time, you had people, while we were leaving the theater, talking amongst themselves, and then grabbing the attention of other people that was yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Wondering aloud where the hell Sam and Tara, Melissa Brea and Jen Ortega were. And again, I thought, this is Scream fans, and I'm not trying to sound like a narcissist or an egomaniac about it. I mean, it's a fucking film series. But I thought these people were peers. Apparently not. I'm starting to think that is not just a microcosm, that it's also what I'm so agitated, I guess is the correct term, about now, and what I'm ranting about now with, the world, as far as this film pertains. And so, that's why, I don't understand why people are so up in arms again about Jessica and Marco being the reveals. By the way, Ethan Embry's character did not give his name at the Psych Institute when Gail and Sydney went. I don't remember, because I've paid attention the fourth and fifth time, hearing him say it at the reveal at the end. And maybe he had a tag. The internet calls him Marco, as in if IMDb, etc. But yeah, so Marco and Jessica, is what seemingly has pissed a lot of people off. And/or I think they're mad because Stu wasn't a big reveal, which is insane to me, because if anybody thought that Stu Macher was going to be Scooby-Doo style de-fucking masked at the end, then I don't understand how you ever watched anything from this franchise, and I have no respect for you. But yeah, the reality of it is, those two, Jessica and Marco, are nothing more than minions. They're just pawns. They're part of the stupid part of a larger plan. I mean, the thing about that is, if you can look back at videos I put up, maybe August, and my Sam and Tara theory, we know that no longer applies, but literally confirmed my Sam and Tara theory, or at least the Sam part, by admitting that his role in the final film was going to be to finally push her over the cliff to become a Ghostface. That's really neither here nor there with this film, because again, she's not in it. But the cult of Stu Macher was definitively going to be part of the third film that Kevin Williamson was going to write, who directed this one. And I do think that's still in play. In fact, I think it's stronger now than ever. So it's not at all, like, actually, it makes more sense that these two clowns were part of it. If you can remember the film, the seventh film, at the end when they're bickering over whose idea it was, both of them have inconsistencies in their stories. And in fact, Ethan Embry's character has to remind Jessica several times what the name of the psychiatric institute was that they supposedly met at. Like, again, when I said the stupid part, I mean literally they're the idiots. Like, they're just pawns, but they're part of something for sure. And the whole advertising, the whole marketing for this film, I mean, again, that poster right there, you got it in theaters, but it's just indicative of everything else. This is Face Your Past. All of the trailers, pretty much, right, you know, we're pushing it down your throat that it's something from the past, somebody from the past. It's almost too obvious, and that's what kills me, is because I feel like everybody watched this film and you're waiting on a reveal and you missed all of this stuff in between because it's really rich with it. It's everywhere. And so, yeah, I think that it's kind of absurd that people were so upset about those two characters and they're just bookending it that way. And, oh, well, that fucking sucked because they don't make any sense. Well, yeah, they do make sense. They make sense as they're not important. It's actually the most Scream thing this movie could do. In fact, while I was watching it, the last 15 minutes or so, I told my buddy, I'm not really much of a movie talker, but I told him, I was like, I bet they won't even reveal a Ghostface in this. I wasn't really all that wrong. They didn't reveal essentially who was the mastermind behind everything. They gave you two people, and it's essentially scapegoats. You don't have a resolution. Rather, you have two minions in the form of Ghostface reveals, like just servants to some higher master. And yeah, if we take what Kevin Williamson said last week to heart, then it's not going to be named Stu Macher. Yeah, I had a pretty strong opinion going into this movie about who that person is, and this did nothing but solidify it. I do think that there's an option that there's another, possibility, but I think that option exists in a better form if these two people have been working together all along. So we're going to start with the one that I can see no way around, and that's Randy Meeks. And I'm going to show you now. We're going to start at the restaurant bar scene.
And the reason they're using Stu Macher to fuck with her is because he was there at the start. The night Sydney, the avenging angel, was born.
A quote right there, straight from Scream 7. I found it somewhere. But remember what I said earlier? Like, all the marketing for Scream 7 was directed, at least most of it pushed in a nostalgia, or, you have lines such as, like, I've been waiting a long time for this, or someone from your past, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, again, I understand why superficial opinions would be upset with the Marco and Jessica reveal, but also, like I said, again, that's exactly why you didn't see the forest for the trees. You weren't watching what you needed to be paying attention to in this film, because I don't think it was a surprise to anybody when Scream 8 was announced. I think literally the day after the premiere, that was always going to be a thing. And that was exactly what this film was. It was a bridge film. It was a setup for another film. And again, not unlike something that Scream would do. But, they weren't what the advertising was mentioning. They weren't what the marketing was pushing. And the marketing wasn't just bullshitting you. It wasn't just lying. It was trying to tell you not to be pissed off, kinda, when, this film ends. Because, again, it's not the ending of it. So, yeah, that quote, though, sorry, I ran it a little bit. That quote is like a fragmented sentence, in my opinion. And I want you to hear it again. Now listen to it.
And the reason they're using Stu Macher to fuck with her is because he was there at the start. The night Sydney, the avenging angel, was born.
Stu doesn't have to be the he that Mindy's mentioning. In fact, I don't think that it is. I think that the they and the he are the same person in that quote. Yeah, so as I was saying, we're going to start at the bar or restaurant that Chloe's parents own. But I'm going to get this out of the way, and it actually segues quite well because one of the first lines that was spoken in that scene was by Ben, Tatum's boyfriend, and he addresses Chad and Mindy, and he says, so what's the deal with you two? Basically, like, what are you doing here? Now, that's pretty meta because that's what Scream does. If you think about it, why would they be there, meaning in the film? Like, what are they doing there? They're the 50% of the core four? Well, your important characters, as in the two final girls, they're gone. It would have been really easy for you to just write them out like they didn't do, those two, honestly. They could have just vanished. So they're there for a reason, right? Like, why are Chad and Mindy there? It's a good question. I'd like to think that they're smart enough to be fucking with us with that. And I'll give them that right now. I don't know if you thought about it, and I just did, honestly. But yeah, what's the deal with these two? They don't do a lot in this movie, except for what they've done essentially in the most, minuscule amount in the past two films, which is, I think, by my count, Chad's been stabbed 19 or 20 times now. That's the third time Mindy's been assaulted. And they get the most superficial wounds. Chad gets stabbed in the same exact shoulder that his uncle Randy does, but he didn't get stabbed. Randy got shot by Billy Loomis 5 feet away. Yeah, well, again, I've already got videos about why it's Randy, but we're going to add this movie into it and keep moving forward. You're welcome to go back and watch those. In fact, it's right there right now. There was no point for them to be there if it's not something going forward. And again, the cult of Stu Macher may have never been the cult of Stu Macher at all. It was the cult of Randy Meeks, who was best friends with Stu Macher. Can't say that Stu Macher's dead, even though Kevin Williamson did. Doesn't matter. This is all in the hands of Randy Meeks, and it has been since the first movie. I'll get to that in a moment. Now, also in the restaurant, you have several different lines that if you don't buy me yet, and I don't have clips from them, but I'm assuming you've seen it, then you can't even be friends with me anymore after hearing these, and you don't understand that they directly correlate to Randy Meeks. So I've come to the realization that I'm going to cut this into 2 videos. I don't really like to run like 25, 30 minutes. So I'm going to knock out the restaurant scene immediately after I'm going to film a part 2. I appreciate you if you made it this far. Also implore you to come back for part 2 because, again, I'm not done. And also, we're going to talk about who the other option or the accomplice is and a couple of other things from 7 that I have a very strong feeling we're going to revisit. And if not the next film, probably the 9th, like 3 or 4 years from now. But let's go back to the restaurant. Yeah, so we know that Mindy and Chad are Randy's niece and nephew. In this scene, she does the thing that Chad even tells her not to do, talking about the rules. She's done it in every film she's been in. And she gives her dialogue, a la her uncle. Now, you start with a couple of them that aren't really stone, concrete evidence. But she says, this time it's all about nostalgia. And whoever it is, they want to bring Sydney out of retirement. The first one, yeah, we know that. You told us in the trailers. We're taking it back to the old school. It was an old fool. But bring Sydney out of retirement. I think that might be a tongue-in-cheek reference to her not being in the 6th film. But it also ties in, tethers my point. But this one right here, he doesn't have a patent, Randy, that is, on the term Scream Queen. But she says she's a Scream Queen. So does he.
How come Jamie Lee Curtis is in all of his movies?
She's the Scream. A set of lines like that.
Again, direct quotes from her uncle. Would be odd if she didn't hear them, firsthand. Then you have this one. There's a reason they keep putting Jamie Lee in new Halloween movies. It's not so odd, but the Jamie Lee part is to me. Because, see, nobody calls Jamie Lee Curtis Jamie Lee except for Randy, Mindy, and then Amber and Five. Or Scream, Redux, what the fuck ever. Yeah, which would make sense because she was a Ghostface and probably under the tutelage of one Randy Meeks. But just the Jamie Lee, no, it's Jamie Lee Curtis. At least where I come from. This person isn't a fan of stab movies. They're a fan of Sidney Prescott. Yeah, okay, I don't think we need to elaborate on that one. Randy Meeks, he was Friend Zone Jones in the first movie and, up until he supposedly died in the second one. Now, elaborating on that, not the Sydney of the day, the Sydney of 30 years ago. Again, that's pretty self-explanatory. Why would she be giving that whole rant and the movie end with a psychotic orderly and a scorned wife turned murderer? Not to mention all of the promotional stuff. It's because this movie was setting up the 8th film, possibly even into the 9th film. They weren't kidding, like I said earlier, about the, who the bad guy is. You just seen some of the level 1 bosses in this one. But we're going to elaborate on that in part 2. Appreciate you guys. I'm Dustin, Horror Movie Rewind, and hopefully we'll see you immediately after this.